On March 29th, Summit's Board of Ed approved its 2016-2017 budget, and now the real work begins. Welcome back to Community Conversation. We're filming from Hometown TV Studios in Summit, New Jersey. I'm Lisa Allen, and I'm here with my co-host, George Lucaci, along with our Assistant Superintendent of Business for Summit Schools, Louis Pepe, who is also the president of New Jersey Association of School Business Officials. Last month, we had our first Community Conversation Roundtable discussing a variety of community issues ranging from the City of Summit's budget, the recent Board of Ed budget that was just passed, and the impact of county government on our town. Today, George and I are back to have a more comprehensive look at the 2016 Board of Education budget that was just finalized on March 29th. We'll be discussing how the budget is developed, opportunities and challenges that lie ahead for education and Summit specifically, and to remind ourselves that we're a community that truly values our schools and our children's education, and we're going to focus in on how each one of us can continue to participate, not only to maintain the best schools, but how we can use our diversity of thought around education and how it's an anchor in our community rather than being a division. So thank you for joining us, Lou. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to be here.
Yeah. I actually want to draw George into this conversation first. George, you were on the Board of Ed for 6 years. You were the Board of Ed president in your last year, and you and Lou are very familiar with each other. I just wanted to have you give a quick background on that.
Well, I worked with Lou for all of my years on the Board of Education, and it was a real welcome addition to have somebody who brought transparency to the numbers and the methodology of the budget. And this is something that I think was transformative for Summit in particular, and we were very lucky to have him. I was on the team that hired Lou, and we never looked back, and it's been a really great addition for the Summit.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, George. I'll tell you, I really appreciate the opportunity and the chance to work with George over those years. But the fact that you recognized New Jersey Association of School Business Officials today, Lisa, I actually have for you our state pin, and George as well. One of the neat things about being president of our association, each year you get to design the pin. And this year that's my pin, which has all 21 counties in New Jersey actually in the pin.
Oh, wow.
Great.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about this organization briefly?
Sure. The New Jersey Association of School Business Officials operates to strengthen the relationships in every district that business administrators have with the administration, with the community, and really to elevate the opportunity within the profession to kind of do what we've done here in Summit, and that is share best practices, try and make sure that the operations of the district are running as optimal as possible. We do a lot of professional training throughout the year, throughout different locations within the state, to ensure that our membership, especially new members coming into the profession, understand the role and responsibility that they have within a district. That's one of the primary functions that we serve. And again, senior level administrators throughout the state share a lot of that knowledge with junior administrators that are coming into smaller districts, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just going to say, I feel like there's so many new challenges and opportunities in education. And when you talk about this organization, how has it changed over the years as education has changed?
I think the prominent piece of the association has been that professional development I had alluded to. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really necessary, especially today, when we look at the cap structure and working within the caps. You really have to become a good fiscal manager and steward of resources, because as resources are becoming more and more limited year over year, and state aid has certainly gone down, if not gone away in a lot of cases, it's been that opportunity through the Association of School Business Officials to share that knowledge and try and bring some of my fellow colleagues along to perform well in districts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, I think, critical, because when you talk about the 2% budget cap, you're talking about a whole different set of criteria that you have to deal with as far as being able to look at what kind of costs are actually baked in, which ones are not, and where you have room to work with the board on developing a budget. By the way, congratulations on the 2016 budget. These are not easy things to do at all, and I think maybe one of the things we can start on a much more macro basis and just talk about the process that occurs. Literally, the process occurs from teachers to principals to the Board of Education, and then the discussion of the budget and what can be done and what can't be done. So it is zero-based to a great extent, and I think that's something that you and I, over the years, have really been in favor of. So maybe you talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I think one of the things to look at with budgeting, especially with any kind of governmental budgeting, zero-based budgeting is a model that works because it sends a clear message throughout the organization that what was asked for last year is not necessarily what you're going to receive again in the following year. Every account starts back at a base of zero, and it's no mystery today that most of our budgets are running with personnel, salary, and benefits. Salary commands about 70% of the budget. With benefits, it could be 10% and or more today. So about 80% of your budget is already predetermined or set. So it leaves a lot less opportunity for other aspects of the budget to fluctuate year over year, especially given the cap. So I think that with zero-based budgeting, it makes people understand that every allocation has to be requested, and beyond just a request, it has to be substantiated. You know, I talk about zero-based budgeting, I talk about site-based budgeting, and site-based budgeting is really a needs-based budget. Every request that comes forward from the supervisors, the teachers, the principals is based on a need. At the same time, we have to also put our fiscal responsibility hat on and look at the limited resources we have and start to rank and prioritize those needs. And I think that's what you've seen successfully work here in Summit year over year. And George is very familiar to that process because that's where the Board of Education gets involved at the operations level and the operations committee. So just to kind of back up, it starts, the budget process, it's a pretty long process. It starts in about end of September. Once the students have already come into the buildings and the year is off to a good start, we already start putting out the budgetary information to build the budget, the guidelines. It's not, as I said to someone one time, it's not just, boy, how much should we put in that account? Let me think, pi times thumb. It doesn't work that way. We start at a base of zero and look at what the needs are. We look at different aspects of the budget, whether it be special education, whether it be basic skills, whether it be regular classroom, whether it be guidance, and or things like our extracurricular program. So when we look at athletics, and we also look at our non-athletic extracurricular, like our award-winning plays that we do in Summit, everything has a cost associated with it. And as the school level starts to grow those budget requests through the supervisors, area supervisors, and principals, they will end up coming before the superintendent, myself, and other key administrators in the cabinet to kind of go through that first level questioning of the requests. Then we make a determination whether or not to advance them forward, especially when you're looking at staff requests. And then once we go through the month of November and December, we as an administrative team, and mostly led by the superintendent, myself, and my assistant business administrator, start finalizing a draft budget that we bring forward to the board through the operations committee. And just like I said before, the process starts all over again at a higher level, where members of the Board of Education start to question some of those expenditures. And one of the things that I think has worked extremely well here in Summit is we don't simply budget for 1 year at a time. We look multi-year. We look at what are the impacts of our budgetary decisions today on future budgets. So even though we're just now putting the 16-17 budget to bed, at least in my mind is already on the 18-19 and 19-20 budgets and what that's going to look like as far as utilizing our fund balances, bank cap, that kind of stuff. So it's just a really exciting thing, and I love the numbers, so I think I'll stop there.
And then at some point, as the budget develops, the public is being brought into the picture here, and they have certain comments. And I guess my recommendation always is, before somebody goes and makes recommendations from the public, and they should, is that they can take a very close look at what you've already produced, ask questions about that. And again, there's always going to be special interests from numerous parts of the community, and you're going to see that as well. Some people think that more should be given to let's say the theater program. Others maybe think the athletic budget is too small. But each one of those budgets makes a presentation to the board over time, correct? Each one of those mini budgets, whether it's athletics or special education, which we can talk about as well.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point that you've raised, because one of the things that we've done here in Summit, and it's unlike a lot of other districts that I've been affiliated with or other districts I've seen, Summit actually provides ample opportunity for members of the public to get involved in the budget process as early as January, even though the budget will not end up at the Board of School Estimate for finalization until the latter end of March. And as George had pointed out, different aspects of the budget come up for discussion, review, and analysis. We kicked off January, as a matter of fact, with salaries and personnel, and because that's a large driver in the budget. We've also recently launched a brand new website, and the superintendent has really exercised a lot of vision there and creating an opportunity for the board to get the message out in a better, easier to use medium. And the business office has its own page, and I now have the ability, which I didn't have in the past, to make updates to that page at a moment's notice. So one of the evenings we had a budget interaction discussion with members of the public, and they were questioning the legal costs of special education. And there was a misnomer of information out there that I was able to address on our website that night as I got home and started thinking about, a better response. So I think that's great, but that provides the opportunity for some of the preparation and research of existing budgets. You can look at the user-friendly budgets from prior years, the budget presentations. They're all available on our district website, and that would also help inform the citizenry prior to coming to the meeting.
Well, and I think you've done a great job engaging the community. Last year you had the not you personally, but the school had the workshops where parents could come in and talk about it. And I just want to ask a question, because you guys have the benefit of seeing the budget on the back end, and I haven't. When you talk about the budget being a zero game, so you start fresh essentially, but you still have, and 80% of the budget is made up of salaries and healthcare. So knowing that you're taking that into your new budget process, right? It's not necessarily zero, right?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that.
What happens is, ultimately, there's a number of different comparisons that people are looking at. The name of the game at the end of the day is the increase on the tax levy. That's how the budget is measured. That's the metrics utilized by the state of New Jersey when we're talking about a cap structure. So this year I spent a little extra time kind of going through the whole cap premise so that people understood the difference between bank cap, the cap, a hard cap, an adjusted cap. So, when the state comes out with the 2% cap model, they also have what's called allowances from the commissioner. And the commissioner waivers, for instance, for health benefits this year, actually adjusted our 2% cap to 2.7. Years prior to the accountability regs, they were called spending growth limitation adjustments, or SGLAs. And Lisa, you could have that for increase in enrollment beyond other districts, like when we opened the primary centers. You could have tuition in some cases where districts do a send receive to a neighboring high school. Fortunately, we have an award-winning high school right here in our own community, so we don't get involved with that. But these are some of the challenges that we've talked about. And when you start off with your question about, a zero-sum game, we do understand that we have to incorporate such things as any other business, and that would be raises. So when we had the collective bargaining agreement ratified for the teaching staff this year, the SEA, we had a 2.5% increase that we had to absorb within the budget. So even though we talked about how some accounts are, non-discretionary, and then we have some discretion in other areas, it's significant savings that we've been able to produce that have covered the increases that were built into the budget, such as health benefits, such as employee raises.
Those are a lot of complexities. Healthcare increases versus what is finally negotiated with the teachers union, and how that helps or doesn't help the teacher, and some of those issues as far as what the cost of living is for the individual in Summit. One of the slides that I saw, which I thought was quite remarkable, was a comparison of how the increases in our budget compare against other districts against inflation. And I thought that was a remarkable slide, because we've done very well against inflation and against the other towns, 5 or 6, 10 towns that was in your slide there. You might want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, one of the things that we had looked at in developing the presentation for the budget this year is how can we effectively get that message out and in a way that it resonates with all of our constituents, because everybody understands the value of high quality education. The districts that we compared to are high quality districts, and they're the districts that we want to compare ourselves with. And what I found is that Summit is actually an outlier at this point because of our history and experience over the last 5 years. I took a 5-year average, and over the 5-year average, Summit's increase on the tax levy was 0.7%. At the same time, during that 5-year time frame, inflation grew at 1.7%. So we advanced budgets on average 1% below inflation during that time. Forget the 2% cap. We were one of 3 districts that actually came in under the 2% consistently for that time period. I think Berkeley Heights and New Providence were the other 2. Most districts came in slightly under 2% or hovered around that 2% mark. I think what was remarkable was the fact that not only did we perform well as far as the increase, we didn't sacrifice any part of the educational program. And that is a direct derivative of the savings. So we maintain high quality program. We actually added staff at the high school over the last couple of years, at the middle school, and we had a program. And the kids are just performing great. We continue to get accolades and high recognition nationally for our high school, our programs, both academic as well as co-curricular. So that's really the telling story here. The challenge is going to be to continue to keep that up.
Yeah, I want to jump in because, on one hand, it's great because we are staying under the cap and we're being responsible. The other counter argument to that people are making is, well, if we didn't go to the cap, then we're not reinvesting. So can you talk to that point?
Sure. I think that, at first blush, that would be the response that you would come away with. However, once you understand, and we did a good job of showing in the slides that we produced about $25 million worth of savings over an 8-year period. Yeah. And one thing that just comes to mind very quickly is the fact that through taking advantage of the RODS grants, and that was the regular operating districts grants, that gave us the ability to get our facilities in great working order, and not only to do repairs, but to replace. And one of the replacements that we did was we replaced all of our boilers throughout the entire district. That alone saved us about $400,000 per year in our gas bill. And I was able to, go back and look at the data. I'm a very data-driven individual, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't just because the price has gone down. It was actually we were using less therms, and that's from operating higher energy efficient boilers. The reason why that's important is because that $400,000 can now be redirected and redistributed to the educational component of the district budget. and 65% of our overall budget is spent right in the classroom, and that's where we want most of our money going.
You know, so what you're saying basically, and I would totally agree with you, and I'm glad you brought that counterpoint up, Lisa, is that what's really important here is not how much money is spent or increased, even though we do have the confines of the 2%, but the efficiency of a dollar. How's that dollar used efficiently to really benefit the student? Let me ask you, Lou, did you have over the years a group, or was there a certain topic that the community thought that maybe we shouldn't spend as much money on, or is that something that never really came up?
No, it's nothing that really comes to my mind. I think one of the things that you have to remember in any district, your educational budget is driven by your superintendent as the chief school administrator, and that's your visionary leader for education and educational program. I kind of coined the phrase the business of education because I'm a business guy, and we are in the business of education, but it is a business. So operationally, my job is to make sure that we have the adequate resources to support our mission, and our mission is to provide quality delivery of instruction. So I think when you look at the challenges that are in front of us, is the fact that once you've achieved a lot of these savings and kind of got the low-hanging fruit, now you have to get more creative, which we started doing, things like, if you remember, energy education was when I first came to the district, and we felt like that our monies could be better spent, on other activities, because we could kind of take that in-house.
Yes.
This year, we upped the game by taking we severed a contract with Energy for America, a separate group that monitored all our set points and turned our equipment on, off, ensure pipes don't freeze and whatever. And it comes down to building automated systems. And through a reorganization of our maintenance team, we were able to put people in place that now understand the technology necessary to monitor our own systems, and we severed that relationship, which saved us another $90,000 per year. So when you start looking at things in chunks of money like that, that's $200,000 per year that could go towards the purchase of the MacBooks or the purchase of the other technologies that we may need. And Chromebooks is a real opportunity that not only are we capitalizing on the ability to infuse more technology at lower levels, because we're going to expand it down to grade 5, we still have the physical presence of mind to do it in a more cost-effective way than to buy iPads, for instance, because you're talking at $250 versus $500.
So you're leveraging technology to
Absolutely.
create that much more efficient dollar.
Yep.
The energy, I remember that energy education item. I think that was about $100,000 line item that we got rid of pretty quickly after you got in. But you also have the benefit to a great extent of technology getting cheaper or more efficient over time, as well as I think we've had the benefit of basically over the last 3 or 4 years of the collapse in commodity prices, which we were prepared for, and maybe you can talk about this, with the efficiency of what we did through the RODS grant with our boilers. I don't think that efficiency or the ability to really take advantage of the move down in commodity prices could have happened without the efficient boilers that we put into the schools.
Absolutely. And I talked about the boilers, but that was just scratching the surface.
Right.
Lisa, I'm sorry, I could talk about rods all day long, but Summit was at the forefront of going out and acquiring the highest number of rods grants in the first round of offering. And if memory serves me, we qualified for about $14 million worth of rods grants. And with that kind of hit at the right place, right time. To George's point, we actually went out to the market as prices were coming down. Our bids came in well under expectation, which allowed us to capture more work that needed to be done to renovate and in most cases fix and repair facilities that were starting to crumble. We did things that like brick repointing. We did about $1 million worth of brick repointing at the middle school. We had a parapet wall that had collapsed at Brayton Elementary School. We did a lot of repair work there. we did windows, we did doors, we kind of fixed the exterior envelope. So it kind of works in tandem when you're talking about the boilers. It's like your home putting in a new furnace, and yet at the same time you put a new roof on, you put new windows and siding. So you have a much more efficient operation. So that has allowed us to now shift our focus on spend back to the classroom and to innovate a program, because we're now no longer putting fires out on facility-related matters.
Right. Well, and I want to ask, I actually have two questions. So the first one is the RODS grants. Were you somebody who is the pioneer of going out and doing this? Were other schools doing it? What made you go out and secure these ROD grants?
Yeah, I'd like to say I was the pioneer, but I was not.
Oh,
I was
okay.
just on one of the many wagons of other districts. What happened is I had a little bit of information that RODS grants were going to become available. So rather than waiting for the RODS grants to be announced, when I came to the district, I had already done similar type work in my previous district under Section 15 grant agreements. So what I did is I kind of mobilized, and I saw a need. And I got an architectural firm, EI Associates, to come in and do a facility assessment of the elementary schools to start, because they were the oldest and most in need of repair. And we laid the groundwork so that when the RODS grants were offered, we were already available and ready to put all of our grant applications in. And we secured, as I said before, the largest amount of work in the first round. So that's what helped us. But other districts have also been doing the same thing. And I think what's helped with my work on New Jersey ASBO that's benefited Summit as well as other districts, I did in fact facilitate a school development authority committee at the state level, where we sat with the members of the SDA and explained to them why the process wasn't really working well and was taking way too long to get districts reimbursed for the money that they'd already put out. So by spearheading that at the state level, we were able to bring the repayment time frame down from periods of 6 months to a year down to periods of 2 to 6 months for districts to get their money back. We streamlined it.
So we've looked at the budget process from a macro view. We've looked at it from the infrastructure perspective. We've touched about some of the more difficult issues that so much is baked into the budget. We've talked about slightly about negotiations, teacher salary and benefits. I hope to talk in our next session with Lou. Lou, if you're going to be joining us on our next session, to talk about maybe the investment possibilities and how the district looks at investing in education as opposed to just what the costs are and what that's going to mean. I think when you look in terms of investment, that's effectively how you're going to be saving money and going back to that efficient dollar thesis, and that's how your dollar can be much more efficient. I'm glad to hear that you're looking throughout 2018, 19, 20, 21. So in our next session, Lisa, I think you'll be leading that charge as well and discussing that. So thank you, Lou. Thank you, Lisa. So next time, please join us in our second session with Louis Pepe when we discuss the investment opportunities of the Summit School District. Thank you.